As the linear comparison video was so popular, it was only a matter of time before I looked at tactiles. As with the linear comparison videos and my review videos since, I score all the switches lubed. I think this is generally fairer and more consistent because most of us are sad enough to lube our switches anyway. Kicking off with the glorious Pandas, they have a loud, slightly high-pitched full sound with a very consistent up and down stroke, partly to do with the long stem pole. They have a very nice, sharp, pronounced tactile bump right at the top of the downstroke, almost identical to the more popular Holy Pandas. A large proportion of these switches have quite a noticeable leaf ping, and lube on the leaf seemingly doesn't work to stop this consistently, which is quite a big negative. However, you don't really notice this sound in normal usage. Housings are very good, didn't need to film these. They don't have much stem wobble, but they still benefit well from lubing very lightly. These get a 26 out of 30. Next up, the drop Holy Pandas. Very similar to the glorious Pandas, though they were around first. These also have a very long stem pole, so that makes it loud, slightly high pitched with a full sound, again very consistent up and down stroke. They have a nice, sharp, pronounced tactile bump right at the top of the downstroke. As with a lot of the tactiles, I didn't need to film these, as the housing is pretty solid. These also benefit from lubing, but they do have some inconsistent factory lube. I give these a 27 out of 30, highest score of the tactiles I've tested so far. The Everglide Dark Jades, or the Moyu Blacks as they're also called. Another loud switch, extremely high pitched, more so than the Pandas. Full sound, less consistent than other long stem pole tactiles, but still a very strong bottom out. The very high pitched bottom out sound comes from the PBT bottom housing and the long stem pole. These have a very, very sharp, aggressive tactile bump right at the top of the downstroke, sharper than Holy Pandas. Same with the others, they don't have much stem wobble, I didn't film them, and they still benefit very well from lubing. I give these a 24 out of 30. The Gazzew Boba U4Ts, well known for their THOCKY, full and deep sound, along with an enormous, strong tactile bump at the very top of the downstroke. Larger bump than Pandas, not quite as sharp as the Dark Jades. Almost no stem wobble at all, and there's pretty much no reason to lube these switches because they're so smooth. Gazzew makes some fantastic switch housings. I only give this a 23 out of 30. It's not quite my cup of tea. Another note, it does come in a 62 or 68 gram spring variant, unlike most of the other tactiles. The Zealios. Sadly, they have a hollow, thin, plasticky sound with a fairly inconsistent up and down stroke. However, the tactile bump is large, rounded and drawn out. Probably the strongest tactile bump out of all the tactiles I've tested. Slightly lower in the downstroke than Pandas, not a strong bottom out given the short stem pole. Probably the second smoothest tactile I've used, still benefits a lot from lubing and there's not very much stem wobble. I give these an 18 out of 30. Also probably worth noting, Zeal sell these with 4 variations of spring weight from 62 to 78 grams. This may affect your tactile feel of the switch. Last and definitely least, the Cherry Browns. Memes aside, these are almost a linear. They have a decent medium full sound with a slightly inconsistent bottom out, an almost non-existent tactile bump. It's very slight, not noticeable during quick typing, more of a crunch sort of feel than a bump. Not much stem wobble and benefits a lot from lubing. This is definitely the quickest review and it gets an 8 out of 30, the worst tactile I've used. Now onto the tactility graph. Left to right we've got no bump to big tactile bump. Cherry Browns obviously no bump. Both Pandas very similar if not exactly the same with a strong bump there. In my opinion the Everglide Dark Jade is a little bit more tactile but it's very sharp, unlike the big rounded bump of the Zealios. And then we have the Boba U4T, in my humble opinion. Moving on to a lovely graph here for the sound profiles. Left to right we've got high pitch to low pitch and we go Everglide Dark Jade. Got the Zealios and then we've got both Pandas and the Cherry Brown. Maybe the Cherry Brown should be more right in the middle, but it's nowhere near the THOCKY Gazzew Boba U4T, which is the thockiest low pitch switch in the lineup. I just want to say thanks to everyone that's been subbing, commenting, liking, watching all my videos. I've been having a load of fun doing it, and I'll continue to do so as long as there's some demand for them.